The key meeting between Xi Jinping and Donald Trump at the International Summit in South Korea seems to have made significant progress. Trump even rated this meeting 12 out of 10. The two leaders agreed on almost everything and reached a trade agreement that could be signed fairly soon, Trump said. By the way, this was the final court of his 5-day tour of Asia. Xi Jinping also pointed out the consensus reached on resolving important economic and trade issues and called on both sides, quote, to finalize and complete the follow-up work as soon as possible, to support and implement the consensus as well as to achieve tangible results. But there is one very unpleasant point here for the Americans. The fact is, it was only Donald Trump who made concessions, but China only withdrew its latest threats, which were actually voiced before the summit just to become a bargaining chip. Well, for example, Donald Trump agreed to lower tariffs by 10% just for Xi Jinping's promise to fight fentanyl, or something else like that. China only promised that it would not impose the strict international export controls on rare earth metals that it had threatened just last week. But China hasn't lifted the old restrictions that were introduced in April, and it doesn't seem like they're planning to lift them. And unfortunately, these are far from the only examples of Donald Trump's failures. I have to admit, there have been several victories too. So let's sum up the meeting between Donald Trump and Xi Jinping together. My name is Pechiy. Today is October 30th. Now let's review everything step by step. But before we start this episode, I ask you to subscribe to this channel, give it a like, and leave any comment under this episode. Also, subscribe to my Telegram channel, Pechiy News. It's called that, and the link is in the description of this video. There we post up-to-date news about the world. If you want to support the work of this YouTube channel, you can do so with any donation or by becoming a sponsor on YouTube. All the links and details on how to do this are in the description of this video. It says there, support the Pechiy channel. Use any format you prefer. I appreciate any support you offer. It seems, based on recent news, that China and the United States have reached agreement on export controls. A statement from Beijing says that the Chinese side will suspend large-scale export controls on rare earth metals for 1 year. In exchange for the United States also suspending for 1 year the rules set to take effect in September, which would significantly increase the number of Chinese companies banned from purchasing certain American technologies. In his comments, Donald Trump stated that the agreement will remove obstacles to the export of strategically important materials and can be extended each year. In short, every year they will meet and review the terms of the trade war. And Trump did not directly mention the suspension of United States regulations, although that was the main concession, because according to Trump, China simply withdrew its threat. He threatened to impose very strict measures starting December 1 export rules on rare earth metals, but now he says, alright, we'll put this idea on hold for a year. According to their consensus, the United States will reduce existing tariffs on Chinese imports by 10% in exchange for Xi Jinping's promise, according to Donald Trump, to further crack down on China's involvement in supplying the deadly drug fentanyl to the United States. So, Xi Jinping didn't publicly promise this. Trump just repeated what the Chinese leader said. The truce, which earlier this year allowed the escalation of tariffs on both sides to be reduced to triple-digit amounts, will remain in effect. This is stated in the joint statement of both sides. Trump stated that this will increase the overall tariff rate on Chinese goods to 47%. China stated that it will make corresponding adjustments to its tariffs imposed by the United States. And according to Trump, China will also increase its purchases of huge amounts of American soybeans. And China noted that both sides have reached a consensus on expanding trade in agricultural products. Beijing also stated that both sides will suspend mutual port fees targeting the shipping sectors. And so, according to Donald Trump, one of China's main issues was discussed, namely United States export controls that block its access to advanced technologies including semiconductors. However, apparently no new breakthroughs were achieved. It appears China still won't receive American semiconductors under current measures. No new companies will be added to this list. In this respect, China has prevailed. But the companies that were already on the banned list will remain on that list. These companies will not receive technology from the United States. So, essentially, before the summit, both the United States and China issued threats. The United States said, for example, that they would expand the list of companies that would not be able to receive our technology. China stated it would impose strict global export controls on rare earth metals. I must say this sounded very wrong. China would require, starting from December 1, that if, say, a European or American company uses more than 0.1% of rare earth metals from China in the production of anything, it must obtain a license in order to sell these goods anywhere at all. And now they've said, okay, we're postponing these threats for a year for now. As for the ongoing issue regarding the future of TikTok, China stated that it would work with the United States to resolve it, but did not support reaching a final deal. Although Trump's people claimed that the issue was supposedly resolved. And in comments before the negotiations, Trump praised Xi Jinping, calling him a great leader of a great country, and said that, in his opinion, they would have fantastic relations for a long period of time. Meanwhile, the Chinese leader said that it was a great pleasure for him to see Trump after many years. Next, I'll quote Xi Jinping. And it's normal that from time to time there are frictions between the two leading economies of the world. We, being at the helm of China-United States relations, must stick to the right course. The two countries can prosper together. But in reality, things aren't that smooth here. Donald Trump escalated the situation minutes before landing in Busan. Trump announced the end of a United States moratorium on nuclear testing that lasted over 30 years. Has nuclear weapons than any other country, naming Russia as second and China, quote, a distant third, but catching up. Next verbatim. Due to the fact that other countries are conducting testing programs, I have instructed the Ministry of Defense to begin testing our nuclear weapons on an equal basis. This process will start now. In response, the Ministry of Foreign Affairs of China stated that China hopes that the United States, quote, will sincerely fulfill its obligations under the Comprehensive Nuclear Test Ban Treaty and its commitment to suspend nuclear testing. In addition, Trump's reduction of tariffs is also a serious gamble for the United States presidential administration. Trump wanted to achieve basically four main results from his tariffs against China: reducing fentanyl supplies to the United States, bringing manufacturing back to the United States, restoring the trade balance, and selling American TikTok assets. These were the four goals Trump set for himself when he started this trade war. The Trump administration made real progress in all four areas. Well, for example, China pointed to the decisive measures it took to prevent the export of key chemicals used to produce fentanyl. Dozens of companies pledged multi-billion-dollar investments in American manufacturing. There seems to be some progress on the second goal as well. The trade deficit between the United States and China reached a 21-year low in August. In addition, Trump and Xi Jinping agreed on the framework of the TikTok deal. It appears all four goals have been achieved. But most importantly, China continues to delay fulfilling the promises made to the Trump administration. In particular, rare earth metals have become a key stumbling block, and the previous guarantees of a free market for rare earth metals have not been fulfilled. Earlier this month, let me remind you, Beijing further tightened control by expanding restrictions. And here is what the Trump administration doesn't want to talk about. According to the agreement reached today between Trump and Xi Jinping, China agreed to lift the recently introduced rules, although the initial restrictions imposed in April remain in effect. This concerns rare earth metals, and it was a very clever tactic by China. It became a bargaining chip. That's exactly what they announced this month, not the initial restrictions, and Trump presented it as a victory. About TikTok, Xi Jinping only promised to cooperate with the United States to properly address the issue, but the problem wasn't solved. Moreover, at the beginning of this year, Trump assured that the Chinese authorities promised him that Beijing would execute drug traffickers caught smuggling drugs into the United States, but they never fulfilled that promise. Although it should be noted that there is definitely a breakthrough in relations with China. But to say that all the problems have been solved and that this was, as Trump put it, a 12 out of 10 meeting is clearly an exaggeration. I'll leave it at that. Share your opinions and conclusions in the comments below this episode. Subscribe to the channel, hit the bell, and don't forget to like. That's it for now. Take care. Goodbye, everyone.